Good evening, and welcome back to Whispers Before We Sleep. Thank you for allowing me to be part of the quiet ending to your day. Perhaps tonight has been gentle, perhaps it has been difficult, or perhaps it was simply one of those ordinary days that quietly slip by. Whatever today has been, I hope this story gives your heart a peaceful place to rest. So take one slow breath. Allow your shoulders to relax and let the world grow a little quieter. Tonight, we will walk beneath a silver moon into a hidden garden where flowers bloom only after midnight and every blossom reminds someone of the beauty they have forgotten within themselves. This is the moon garden that blooms at midnight. On the edge of a sleepy little village, beyond a winding stone bridge, past fields where lavender danced gently in the evening breeze, there was said to be a garden, not an ordinary garden. No maps showed where it was, no sign pointed toward it, and strangely, no two people ever seem able to find it in exactly the same place. Some discovered it beside an old stream. Others found it behind a quiet chapel. A few claim it appeared at the end of a forest path. Only on nights when the moon was full. The villagers simply smiled whenever someone asked about it. If the garden wishes to meet you, it will. Among those villagers lived an elderly gardener named Elias. He had spent his entire life tending flowers. His tiny cottage overflowed with roses, jasmine, lavender, and tiny white daisies that nodded in the morning breeze. People admired his beautiful garden. But whenever they praised him, Elias would gently shake his head. The flowers teach me. I only help them grow. Every evening, just before midnight, Elias carried an old lantern and walked the same quiet path. He never hurried. He never looked back. He simply followed the moonlight. One evening, a young traveler noticed him. Curious, she quietly followed from a distance, across the bridge, through the meadow, past the whispering trees, until suddenly the path ended, or at least it should have. Instead, the moonlight revealed an old iron gate wrapped in silver vines. Beyond it, countless flowers glowed as though tiny stars had settled upon their petals. Soft blues, gentle violets, golden blossoms shimmering like candlelight. The air smelled of jasmine after rain. The traveler stood frozen. She had lived nearby her entire life, yet she had never seen this place before. Elias smiled without turning around. I wondered when the garden would invite you. The young woman blinked in surprise. You knew I was following you? I knew the garden was expecting someone. She stepped through the gate. The flowers swayed gently, though there was no wind, and for reasons she couldn't explain. She suddenly felt lighter, as though she had been carrying something heavy. Without ever realizing it, perhaps, some places do not heal our hearts by changing us. Perhaps, they simply help us remember who we have always been. The young traveler visited the moon garden again the following evening. and then the evening after that. Each night, the garden looked different. New flowers appeared where none had been before. The winding pots seemed to gently rearrange themselves. Even the stars overhead appeared brighter. Yet one thing never changed. Near the center of the garden, beneath the branches of an ancient silver willow, stood a single flower that remained tightly closed. Its petals shimmered like pearl beneath the moonlight. But unlike every other blossom, it never opened. The traveler finally asked Elias, "Why doesn't that flower bloom?" The old gardener smiled. "It is waiting." "For what?" "For someone who believes it can." She frowned slightly. "But surely flowers bloom because of sunlight, water, and time." Elias nodded. "Most do, but not this one." He gently knelt beside the flower. "Some flowers are much like people. They spend so long believing they are not ready that they forget they were created to bloom." The traveler looked quietly at the unopened blossom. Its leaves were healthy. Its stem was strong. Everything about it suggested it should already be blooming. Except it wasn't. Night after night, she found herself returning to the flower, never touching it, never forcing it, simply sitting nearby, sometimes reading, sometimes humming softly, sometimes saying nothing at all, until one peaceful evening, as the moon reached its highest place in the sky, she heard the gentlest sound, almost like a whispered sigh. The flower slowly unfolded its glowing petals, one by one. Not because someone demanded it, not because someone rushed it, but because, for the very first time, it felt safe enough to bloom. Elias watched from a distance, then quietly said, "The most beautiful things in life cannot be hurried." Deep within the moon garden, beyond a path lined with glowing white lilies, stood a wooden bench beneath an enormous tree. Its branches stretched towards the stars. Its silver leaves shimmered with every gentle breeze. The villagers called it the moon tree. Elias often sat there after tending the garden, not to think, not to plan, simply to listen. One evening, the traveler joined him. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt comfortable, like old friends sharing the end of a beautiful day. Finally, the young woman asked, "Why is this place so peaceful?" Elias smiled. "Because nothing here is trying to become something else." The traveler looked around. The roses weren't trying to become lilies. The daisies weren't wishing to be orchids. Even the smallest wildflowers bloomed exactly as they were meant to. Elias continued, "People spend much of their lives comparing themselves. They wonder why they are not faster, braver, wealthier, or more successful. But have you ever seen a lavender flower wishing it were a rose?" She laughed softly. "No, exactly. The garden is peaceful because every flower accepts its own season." The traveler rested her hand on the old wooden bench. For the first time in many years, she stopped comparing herself to anyone. And in that quiet moment, she felt lighter than she had in a very long time. Above them, The moon tree gently released a single silver leaf. It floated slowly through the cool night air, landing softly beside an open flower, which now bloomed brighter than ever before. Perhaps peace begins. The moment we stop trying to become someone else and begin appreciating the beauty of who we already are. As the weeks passed, word of the moon garden quietly spread, not because people spoke loudly about it, but because those who visited somehow returned different. They smiled more often, they walked a little slower, they noticed bird song they had once ignored. They paused to admire the colors of an evening sky. No one could fully explain why. One cool autumn night, Elias handed the traveler a small woven basket. "Tonight," he said with a gentle smile, "I'd like you to help me." She followed him through the winding paths until they reached the oldest part of the garden. There, hundreds of moonflowers glowed like tiny lanterns. Elias carefully picked one blossom, then another. But before placing each flower into the basket, he closed his eyes for a moment. "What are you doing?" the traveler whispered. "I'm listening." "To what?" "Every flower carries a story." She tilted her head. "A story?" Elias nodded. "This one reminds me of forgiveness." He held up a pale blue blossom. "And this one?" He smiled at a tiny white flower. "Speaks of courage." They continued walking. A lavender bloom reminded him of patience. A golden flower reminded him of gratitude. A soft pink blossom reminded him of love that asked for nothing in return. The traveler looked at the basket. "So every flower has a secret?" Elias chuckled gently. "Not a secret, a reminder." Nature has always been speaking to us. We've simply forgotten how to listen. Before they returned home, Elias handed her one final flower. It shimmered with a gentle silver light. "What does this one mean?" she asked. The old gardener looked toward the moon. "It reminds us that even after the darkest night, morning always comes." The traveler held the flower close to her heart. For reasons she could not explain, she felt as though she had been given exactly the words she needed. The traveler returned to the moon garden for many peaceful nights. Sometimes she walked its quiet paths. Sometimes she sat beneath the moon tree. Sometimes she simply listened to the gentle breeze, the whisper of silver leaves, and the soft rustling of flowers opening beneath the moon. Each visit felt like a conversation, not with words, but with silence. One evening, as Elias carefully watered the glowing blossoms, the traveler asked, "Will this garden always be here?" The old gardener smiled. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether people continue believing that quiet places still matter." She looked around. "I hope they do." "So do I." The moon slowly climbed higher. The flowers glowed brighter. The entire garden seemed to breathe with peaceful life. Then Elias quietly said, "I have been taking care of this garden for nearly 50 years. The traveler looked at him in surprise. 50 years? He nodded. But gardens, like people, know when it's time for someone else to continue the work. She looked at him, confused. I don't know anything about magical gardens. You know enough. You listen. You notice. You care. And flowers have always trusted kind hearts. The traveler lowered her eyes. She had spent so much of her life believing she wasn't ready. Yet, here was someone who believed in her. Before she believed in herself, that night, they planted one final seed before beneath the moon tree. No grand ceremony, no applause, only moonlight, quiet hands, and hope. As the first hint of dawn appeared across the horizon, something extraordinary happened. Instead of disappearing, the moon garden slowly faded into the morning mist, not because it was gone, but because it had become a part of everything around it. The traveler stood quietly. The old iron gate had vanished. The glowing flowers could no longer be seen. Only a simple meadow remained. Birds began singing. Morning light warmed the grass. She turned to thank Elias, but he was already walking slowly toward the rising sun. Without looking back, he gently raised one hand in farewell. The traveler smiled. She understood. Some teachers never truly leave. They simply become part of every lesson they have shared. From that morning onward, she cared for flowers whenever she lived. She planted seeds in forgotten places. She left tiny gardens beside schools, hospitals, libraries, and quiet neighborhood streets. People often ask why she loved flowers so much. She would simply smile and answer, because someone once reminded me that beauty grows best where kindness is planted. And though no one could ever find the moon garden on a map, many believed that every act of kindness, every flower planted with love, and every peaceful heart carried a small piece of it. Before you close your eyes tonight, think about the quiet gardens in your own life. Perhaps it is a place, a memory, a person, or a simple moment that always brings your heart peace. Hold that place gently in your thoughts, like a flower. Your heart does not need to bloom all at once. Growth happens quietly, healing happens patiently, and beauty often appears when we stop searching for perfection and simply allow ourselves to become who we were always meant to be. Tonight, may your heart rest gently, may your thoughts grow still, and may your dreams bloom beneath a peaceful moon. Thank you for spending another peaceful evening with me. I hope tonight's story has brought a little more calm, a little more hope, and a gentle reminder that the most beautiful things in life often bloom quietly. If this story brought you comfort, I'd love for you to return again for another peaceful journey. Until then, may your nights be restful, your heart remain light, and your dreams always lead you somewhere beautiful. Good night, sleep peacefully, and remember, just like the moon garden, the kindness you plant today may bloom in someone's heart tomorrow. Good night.